Phantom Menace in 3D. Right. I went to...
I hope the review's going to pick up a bit.
Oh, no, okay, fine. So, years and years ago, you and I were working at Radio 1, okay? And Radio 1 had a poll in which the audience voted for their favourite movie of all time, and Star Wars won.
Unsurprisingly.
Okay? Star Wars got twice as many votes as the next, the number 2, which was The Godfather, okay? So it didn't just win, it properly landslide victory, okay? And then there was the announcement that George Lucas was going to make the prequels, and we did a competition in which we took a Star Wars fan out to Los Angeles to see Phantom Menace.
It was an extraordinary competition and a great prize, and a whole bunch of folks arrived with their passport, and there was just one winner announced, and then we sorted it, and then we got on the plane. We went to LA, and we went to the extraordinary premiere.
And the premiere, as far as I was concerned, was the best possible experience you could have. It was I think it was the Kodak Theatre, and the thing I remember about it most was that everyone was trying to zhuzh me up to get me interested, because I've never been a Star Wars fan, although I think that, there's a certain charm in the first 3 movies, meaning 4, 5 and 6 as opposed to 1, 2 and 3. And in order to they had got Linda Blair on the phone, because George Egg&Two Bacon vaguely knew Linda.
You're going to have to explain.
He was the producer of the Radio 1 programme. The whole thing was his...
No one's going to know who he is.
No, but I was passing over it swiftly. Now you've held it back. He was a friend of hers, and so, that was nice. And then when we got there to the cinema, William Friedkin was in the audience.
He was just behind you.
He was just behind me. And my main memory of the film was 2 things happened. First one was, this is the film is backstory, because there are 3 prequels to the first Star Wars movie, okay? This is the first of the prequels, so you've got 3 movies full of backstory. That's 6 hours of film backstory, right? And the film opens with some backstory. It opens with a thing which says, in the year of the blingy blong, when the Nabrithung, the tax wars and the trade deficit of the... You're going, what?
Greek bailout.
Hang on, the titles haven't even started yet, and already I'm underwhelmed by backstory, and you're telling me that it's going to be a film about taxation?
Yeah, and these are all the words that in Star Wars style are disappearing into the horizon. You're thinking, hang on, can you bring them back again? I've missed it.
The trade embargo of the... It's like a Europe, like some kind of European Parliament meeting, and the film hasn't even started yet. And then the film began. Here's a clip.
How feel you?
Cold, sir.
Afraid, are you?
No, sir.
See through you. We can.
Be mindful of your feelings.
Your thoughts dwell on your mother.
I miss her.
Afraid to lose her, I think.
What has that got to do with anything?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
My name is Frosty Bear.
Muppets coming
Frank
up.
Oz.
Exactly. And, obviously there was that famous thing from Clerks, is that you've now made yourself choke, is that the third Star Wars movie is Muppets in Space. Anyway, so we took this guy, and he went... the first thing that happened was William Friedkin fell asleep and snored really loudly. The second thing that happened was I thought, I can't believe how bad the dialogue, how bad the acting is. Although there is the pod racing sequence. There is the pod racing in which...
And Darth Maul is good.
Yeah. But Jar Jar Binks was insurmountable. And very soon afterwards, a bunch of fans got together and made Star Wars The Phantom Edit, in which they basically re-edited the film, firstly to take out young Anakin saying yippee, which he said quite a lot, and secondly to take out Jar Jar Binks. And I remember thinking Jar Jar Binks was unbelievably annoying, and everything was... Natalie Portman's weird use of accents and the whole thing about Amidala and, the 2 characters, but they're one, and what? And all this backstory about taxation literally seems to be a movie that was written by George having done his tax returns and got a bit cross about it.
Is 3D good?
So, now, a statement from George Lucas which says, when we originally made Episode 1, we were pushing the boundaries of technology, which was fun and exciting. It was an exploration into the unknown. We're now going through a new technological revolution that is set to change everything. Watching a movie in 3D is simply a better way to watch a movie. Let me read that to you again. Watching a movie in 3D is simply a better way to watch a movie. It's like black and white versus colour. Watching a movie in black and white is fine. However, colour makes it look more real. Yeah, like when they did Casablanca, the colour colorized version, it was so much better. And when they took It's a Wonderful Life and colorized it, it was so much better. Yeah, you're exactly right, George. That whole thing that Elvis Costello used to say about watching a black and white movie that's been colorized is like watching a television which after you've allowed the kids to draw all over the screen in crayons. No, that's all wrong. You're right, George. These movies are better in colour. Colour, but good. Black and white, bad. That's why The Artist is so much not as good as all the other films that we've seen this week, like Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill is in colour, therefore is better than The Artist, and it has sound. Therefore, George, no one buys this. For a start, everyone knows that the reason The Phantom Menace existed and the reason The Phantom Menace is now being reissued is monetary. You give the game away by starting with a whole thing about tax. I mean, it begins with a screed about tax. But sitting there watching the movie, all my old problems about Jar Jar Binks, blimey, Charlie, and you remember all the stuff at the time about whether or not Jar Jar Binks was a racist stereotype, none of which actually... It's just the most annoying character imaginable.
Did you almost said ever there?
Yeah, it's not ever, no, but just
that.
imaginable. The story is plodding and boring and makes no sense. The script is terrible. The acting is wooden. As Ewan McGregor said, his main role in that film was to walk into rooms and look up. That's what he does. He walks into rooms and he looks up, okay? By the time Darth Maul finally turns up and the double-ended lightsabers come, you think, thank heaven there is something, because the only two things you remember from that film is the pod race and the double-ended lightsaber, and that's about it. The 3D is terrible. And I know they worked really hard, and I know they spoke to James Cameron's people. They did all that stuff. Believe me, I'm not the only person. I sat there in a really nice screening room, the View Cinema in Eastleigh, where they did a lovely job of projecting it, and the image was dull. And so now, when we saw it the first time in what was then the pristine version, the best you're ever going to see it in, I'm pretty sure it was the Kodak Theatre on Hollywood Boulevard, with the greatest Star Wars fan in the world. And we came out of that, and he said, and you remember this, because this has been attributed to me, but you'll remember this. What did he say about it? The guy...
Well, I don't recall this. This is what you're telling me that I remember that I heard from the moment that
he said
came out. It wasn't terrible.
It wasn't terrible. But he was clearly heartbroken. Now, imagine that, right? Now, crank it down in terms of all the colour loss and light loss and colour saturation loss. Now you're wearing the stupid glasses. The 3D is really bad 3D. It's retrofitted 3D. You remember Clash of the Titans? That's what happens when you retrofit 3D. And all I could think of all the way through was, at least Titanic has got a story. At least Titanic 3D is not going to start with a long thing about how the reason the Titanic hit an iceberg was that somebody was filling out their tax returns when the thing loomed up on the horizon. Believe me, I didn't think I liked Phantom Menace before. Phantom Menace in 3D is an utter headache, because at least before, in pristine, glowing, digital, whatever it was, every now and then you looked at the detail. George, it is not true that watching a movie in 3D is simply a better way to watch a movie. It's like black and white versus colour. Watching a movie in black and white is fine, however, colour makes it look more real. No, George, no! One thing I would say in George Lucas's defence, I interviewed him once, and he said, I'll be quick, he said, I said, I never understood the Star Wars films, but having seen kids play with the toys, I do get that. And he said, well, you know what, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the films exist to create the characters so that kids can play with the toys and make up their own stories. I thought it was very honest. On the one hand, it was him saying, I'm not as good a storyteller as the kids are. And on the other hand, it meant, actually, the one thing he always gets told is only economic, the toys. I think he actually did think beyond that he genuinely did want kids to go and make up their own stories. Please make up your own stories with your toys at home.